Hello and welcome to the IDMC Summer Season V8 Supercar Championship. I'm your commentator for tonight, Niall Maher, and I'm joined by Kevin Galvin, who is just having some technical difficulties at the moment. So we'll wait for Kevin to join back in, and apologies for the late start to the stream tonight. So we're looking at all the comments coming in here, and hello to everyone from Lawrence. I see Chris is on as well, and Sergey. So keep those comments coming in, but qualifying is well underway here in the background. As we just look here, I'll show you right now, we have Josh Mallon currently topping the timing board with Keith Dempsey, followed by Nicky Meriden. Peter Dempsey just putting in the time behind him in 5th place, so 1,000 of a second separating the top 5. Brian McManus going well as well. That VRA is a great livery on that car. As we just stick with Brian here for a moment, and we see if Brian can better his time, currently in 6th place, as we ride on board with Brian as he comes down through this tight section of this Red Bull track. So a lot of guys talking about how they're loving these cars, the V8s, they're really putting them to the test. Getting the power down is so hard in the cars. You can see here, just trying to find that grip, middle of the corner, the car washes out. Has to be so careful on the accelerator before putting down the power and then coasting the car around. So we're really expecting to see some great racing out on track. We've currently got 33 drivers, I believe, qualified in for the Pro Series. Josh Mallon, we've got Oscar Mangan back in with us as well. So Oscar expecting to do great things here because he's very, very quick. He's well respected across all of the iRacing community, as is Keith Dempsey. And look at that, Ronan Doherty coming in 4th place, followed by Nicky Meredith. Then we've got Peter Dempsey all the way across in the States. Peter joining us from across the pond. And then we have Arturus Condelis, followed by Fabrizio Rivera. And Rory O'Shea rounding out the top 10. Then look at this group. Neil Ferrer, followed by James Holman, Wayne Douglas. Newcomer to the group, Dennis Hanley Jr. and Simon Wall in top 16. Peter McCann, followed by David Collier and Tony Stack, with Adam Dowling rounding out the top 20. Then the rallyman Joe Naunton from Redline Racing, actually, just seen that there, with Kevin Lacey just back into the pits. Then the ever-entertaining Joe Monterio, followed by Ben McCluckery, with Robert Moore, Aaron Dalton. Look at this, Niall Murray yet to put a time in. Of course, to get 3 lone flying laps, Brian doesn't improve on his time there around. But let's ride with Oscar Mangan from the Core Esports team. Niall Murray yet to put a time in, with Kevin Shine, Keith Stewart as well, new racer with us for this season, Mark Burney, and the ever-entertaining and always sideways Brendan Stone rounding the top 33. So that is your pro drivers, and as I say that, Niall Murray immediately skips up into the top 10 as Robert Moore pips in as well. So this is really going to be a battle of the titans. I'm still waiting to see if our usual commentary team can join us, but for the moment you're stuck with me, Niall Maher. There's a wait to see if Kevin can get back in, but as I say that, look at this, Keith Dempsey pops in, pole lap, setting down the benchmark for everyone, pipping Josh Mallon. He's happy with that. He thinks that's enough to get him onto pole. Josh Mallon isn't going to be able to improve on that, and that could be the way it sets out unless this man, Oscar Mangan, let's ride on board. Currently Oscar not putting any purple sectors, but keep absolutely nailing that last lap with a 1:30.2. The top 10 now separated by less than a second, which will just show you how close these guys are. But this is going to be riding on board now. We'll just go back out, see if Oscar's put in a purple sector in the first sector, so he is on for pole position here, and he's more than capable of doing it. You can just see the speed he's carrying through these apexes. iRacing platform itself actually counts the off tracks as he comes over the line. Let's just see, has he been able to do it? No, he hasn't been able to improve. So Oscar Mangan, he has been able to improve to 2nd place, but Keith Dempsey on pole so far. Let's see, brother Peter Dempsey's pulled over. Niall Murray unable to improve on that. Wayne Douglas is still out on his flyer. I don't think Wayne is going to challenge for Keith's spot, but he could get into the top 10 on this run. So let's just see as he runs out wide. So that will actually invalidate his lap. That's what I was talking about with track cuts. So that will be our grid for the races. We have another 2 minutes in qualifying left as we just see who else is still out on track. I think Joe Monterio still has a run. Or maybe he's just finished that off. So that looks like our qualifying as it is for the moment. We'll just wait for the confirmation of our grid. And as Lawrence is saying there, Red Bull Ring is one of his favourite tracks. One of mine too, Lawrence. And it's certainly going to suit these cars as the ever professional Joe decides to bring that car back into the pits. I think Wayne is still... Okay, so just 1 second. We're going to see if we can get Kevin on right now. 1 sec.
Can you hear me?
I can, of course. Just 1 second. It's good to have you back. So we'll just be sorry for those who were watching us on the live stream. So Kevin, welcome back in. I know you had some technical difficulties there to start, but we're just coming to the end of our qualifying now. So great timing for you to join in. How are you, Kevin Galvin?
Very good. You can blame the Health Minister, Stephen Donnelly, for my slight delay. Unfortunately, got caught interviewing him late, and unfortunately, informing people about the current situation as regards the pandemic, unfortunately, has been delayed for the more important task of seeing these V8s absolutely fly around the Red Bull Ring here. I love this track. You know, it's one of those tracks that just works so well with so many different cars. They had I raced my first TCR, having watched the guys go in the TCR in the previous season. I was kind of determined to give it a bash myself, and the first round of the Michelin Pilot Challenge was at the Red Bull Arena, and it just works so well for all different kinds of class racing. We've seen the ELMS here as well. So look, as we say, a bit of a strange name in second place there. I noticed Oscar Mangan up to second, obviously extremely quick as Oscar, but not one we're used to seeing in the championship up to recently. But Keith Dempsey on pole, that's something that we've heard a huge amount. Keith, a lot of controversy with Keith in last year's championship, some of it caused by myself, but it would be great for him and the Turn 3 guys to turn over a new leaf. I think it's great that we've had this a little bit of a break between the championship, between the TCR cars, which I absolutely loved. But I think the V8s do encourage close racing as well. Hopefully a little less controversy over the coming 6 weeks of the championship. I suppose, Niall, give me your thoughts heading into this year's championship. What do people need to know from a regulation point of view, and what kind of stands out that people need to know before we go into this race?
Well, I guess the biggest thing to call out is we're just about to go lights out here, but it is of course that we have a heat race and a feature race. So from the regulations point of view, this is going to be our heat race, which is 10 laps. The drivers are allowed to put a wheel over the white line, which will just put the mouse in here that you can see to indicate the side of the track. We're allowed to do that 12 times at what we call a track cut or car contact. If they get 12 incidents, they have to serve a drive-through penalty, which is one of the rules that we've introduced. And then it's every 5 incidents after that they have to serve another drive-through. So that's a kind of a feature of esports and digital motorsports in a sense. Other than that, it's a 10-lap race. The feature race is going to be a 15-lap race, which will have top 15 drivers inverted. So that's always going to be exciting to see. But as we get ready here for the lights to go out on this, with about 4 minutes to go, I hate doing this, but I'm going to make my prediction here, and I'm going to say Oscar Mangan is going to come back into this series and really make an imprint. So I'll hand it over to you, Kevin, to take us through lights.
We got 2 lights, 1 light, and no lights left. We have lights out here at the Red Bull Arena, and Keith Dempsey's off to a good start, but Oscar's already into first place. Keith's actually not off to a good start. I spoke too soon. Slow off the line. He's being surrounded by Holdens and Fords going into that opening corner at the Red Bull, when we see now all the way down to 5th place Keith Dempsey. Josh Malin now is inside Oscar Mangan, who got a great start on the inside, of course, and I suppose that's the thing about you start first and you do have that first grid position, but you are outside into the first corner. Notice a heavy heavy braking zone heading into the second corner. We see plenty of contact here in the F1, but all these guys managing to keep it clean, with Josh Malin obviously flying the VRA colours. Josh was really strong in the latter part of the TCR season, of course, and a former champion, of course, even just recently is Josh is trying to battle off Oscar Mangan now heading in to this twisty section. This is an awkward corner. The car kind of comes away from you all the time. We're heading downhill braking, so a lot of understeer heading into that one, but all these guys managing to keep it together. Obviously, as we know from the recent Formula 1 race in the Red Bull Arena, is a relatively small, short track, so short laps encourages guys to be a little bit more aggressive. As you see, too wide there behind, ahead of Arturus Candelas, that's Richard Lyons and Fabrizio Rivera, both of them as getting through. But yeah, what did you make of that start? Now, Oscar absolutely flew it up the inside, but Josh Malin, as he tends to do, comes out of the battle on top.
Well, I'm just looking down through the grids here. There's been an incident between Dave Collier and Kevin Lacey, so we might have a look back on that. But Kevin Lacey is making his way back up through the grid. But like we said, Oscar Mangan, a man to watch. I'm not quite sure what happened to Keith Dempsey. Let's just ride on board with Keith and see, has he got some damage on the car? Did he have contact? But surprising to see Keith, as you can see, he's struggling with the car there, Kevin. So he's not getting the power down out of the corners.
Very hard to get traction on the exit, yeah.
I was surprised to see, but now he's coming under significant threat from this danger man, Niall Murray. So let's stick with this battle for a while and see how this pans out.
These are the Red Bull Racing Holdens. Shane Van Gisbergen is usually the man in these cars, but these guys running this for Turn 3 Motorsport, of course, Niall Murray and Keith Dempsey, teammates usually. Niall having to hold off Keith brother Peter heading down the hill now, and Peter goes for a lunge down the inside, and Niall slightly loses it on braking. Peter's going to get the position, I think, and yes, Peter Murray into 5th position. That was a nice move from Peter. Obviously, Niall being not battling him too much, not closing the door too much, and certainly losing a bit of traction. These are very, very difficult cars to drive. Let's not forget, you do have to blip the throttle as you're going down a gear, which is something that when you drive GT cars you're not used to, because they have the auto blip, but they are cars that can get very, very squirrely under braking. It's all about the balance in these cars. If you can get the balance right, if you can get your balance through the corner, then you're okay. As we see a nice little battle here between James Holman and Adam Dowling. Adam, and on the outside of this one, it's Kevin Shine heading up the inside of James Holman, and contact there between those two, and Tony Stack now making the most of that, heading down the home straight, and the contact again, James Holman there. That's time it's with Kevin Shine, and 3 wide now heading down the front straight. Can we go back to that maybe, because that was a 3 wide battle heading into the first corner. Here now James Holman down the inside. He has the better line. You think he's going to make that work with James Holman. Kevin Shine now slipping down the inside of Tony Stack slipping down the inside of Kevin Shine. 3 guys with a huge amount of experience, particularly Tony Stack and Kevin Shine in these competitions. 3 wide battling, and as we say, the V8s now are very similar to the TCR cars, and the fact that they do encourage that close wheel-to-wheel racing. Here's Arturus Candelas with Nicky Meredith for company. Nicky holding it down the inside. Arturus with the little meme paint, which is always good to see. Unusual to see so many cars not racing their usual team paints in this competition. A lot of sponsored paints. Not sure if that's a trading paints issue, as that's coming wide. There is Nicky Meredith, just lost the back end there through that infield section, and he's on the outside. That's easy now for Arturus to slip up the inside, but obviously Nicky has complete tag slap, right? It's so hard to get on the power. That's what we've seen already from Keith, and we've seen from Arturus Candelas here. You get the braking and the back end steps out a little bit, but if you get too hard in the power, the back just wants to over rotate all of the time. You're constantly fighting the car, and very, very different in that way to the TCR cars, because of course TCR cars being front wheel drive, if you have a bit of a tank slapper, you just jam the throttle in and the thing sorts itself out. Whereas when you're
front here, I'm just sorry for cut the cross, Kevin. We're just looking now. Peter Dempsey is closed in onto the back of the Keith, and they're starting to form a bit of a train in behind Ronan Doherty here to close in onto the back of Josh Malin. But this is Oscar. Meanwhile up front, Oscar has managed to get out in front, and as I look back, as I'm saying that, Ronan Doherty has my mic cut off there for a sec. I was just saying,
to move on the inside of
anyway, we'll stick with this group for a moment anyway, and I'll let you commentate on it there.
Yeah, Peter Dempsey trying to move down the inside of Rowan Doherty, and as you say, Oscar Mangan has retaken that first place. He was great off the line there, was Oscar, and as Niall said, one to watch in this championship, certainly, with Rowan Doherty now in fourth place, taking it from Peter Dempsey. Nice little battle between these two as we head into the infield section here of the Red Bull Arena. Obviously, a track that was unfortunately sort of lost for a number of years before some private investment took it back, us back to the hills of the Styrian Mountains. Here's Peter Dempsey. We're on board, or we're watching him. Nice little move down the inside of Ronan Doherty. Good little battle here developing between these two, with Peter getting the better of Ronan for the moment. But Ronan certainly won't be backing off, and Peter's out of that tow now of Keith Dempsey. He's just over a second behind Keith, so Ronan has the tow, and that can be quite a big difference in these cars. Although it will be interesting to see what kind of difference the rear aero plays. A huge rear spoiler, of course, on these V8 supercars. Ronan staying very, very close. I wonder, will he try and move? I think Peter's going to try and cover off the inside. He is. Ronan, if he's going to do it, he's going to have to do it the hard way, as we see a battle up front between Josh Malin and Keith Dempsey. Josh slipping down the inside, Peter getting, and it looks like a little bit of contact there. Difficult to see as Ronan rotates again, and we see the same thing that Arturas Condelis did. Ronan just, I don't know, was there a tap on the front, and that meant he lost a little bit of aero. But now a good battle between Keith Dempsey down the inside of Josh Malin. That battle has been developing on, and Josh giving just about enough room to Keith to get through. Good move there by Keith Dempsey. In fairness, good clean racing between those two. Josh surrenders the position, but with a good 5 laps left in this feature race. Oh, there's a bit of move down the inside there from Peter Dempsey and Josh Malin. Will he turn Malin? Certainly contact there. Malin's now stuck on the outside, which means Peter has the inside. Be interesting to see if Malin swaps back to the inside. What a move by Josh Malin to take third place back off Peter Dempsey. What a brilliant move there. Peter tried down the inside, and Josh just swapped, left him for dead on the outside, and now Josh into third place and hunting down Keith Dempsey. But close battles right up and down the field. But certainly, as Simon Wall, something's happened to him. He's dropped down the standings. But certainly, there we are on board with him now. We're not entirely sure what happened there, but Niall, massively competitive all the way down the field, as we're used to. But great to see such clean racing as well.
And as I said, I called out at the start of this, Oscar Mangan, the danger man to watch here, and certainly that has all played into
we're looking at Oscar Mangan coming down the hill now to that hard braking zone. Oscar is now 2.5 second lead. He's quite happy to see all that battling going on behind him, because it means that he can just ride off into the sunset, and has a great chance of taking this opening feature race in this autumn series, or this series of the IDMC, this latest edition, the V8 Supercars Series. And of course, if you do want to get involved, you can name your driver of the day and give us your thoughts on that. We'll be keeping an eye on the YouTube comments as the proceedings go along. Now, Ronan Doherty, we already saw him squirrely earlier on, and he's lost that one. Has he gone into the side of Neil Ferrier? I think he has, and to be fair to Ronan, there was no malice in that. He just completely lost the back end in braking. You could see a total tank slapper, and Ronan was trying to do his best just to avoid any contact. He has made the place. I think Neil is flashing his lights. He wants Ronan to give him the place back. I think that's what Ronan's going to do. He's just going to ease off the throttle. That's good sportsmanship there, and Neil getting back past Ronan Doherty. And Ronan, who was running in the top 5 only recently, just a few incidents, and it makes such a difference. Brian McManus, here's a man we haven't heard a huge amount about, sporting V8 colours as well. Both of them clearly off track as they continue that battle. It will be interesting to see what the stewards tell Brian to give that back, but it is Richard Lyons who's slowing down there. Yeah, he seems to have gotten an off track, so he's trying to bleed that one off. We'll see if Brian's on the inside. Did he get away with it? But Brian now has Fabrizio Rivera for company, as Oscar Mangan now, with that lead has increased again. 2.5 seconds it was. It's now up to 2.6 seconds and increasing all the time between himself and Keith Dempsey. Josh Malin the further second behind, but behind Josh he's Peter Dempsey only 5/10 of a second. So certainly the podium spot very much up for grabs as Jason Smith now we're looking at as he tries a little move down the inside, and again the back end steps out, and that's contact there between Richard Lyons and Jason Smith. Richard's going to hold on for Jason to come back. Dennis Hanley Jr. takes a spin in that corner as well, and it is very difficult. If you clip that inside curve in those V8 Supercars, they're just extremely unstable, and that means that that's all changed. And now Arturas Condelis is in the top 10 along with Joe Naughton, Rory O'Shea in 8th, Fabrizio Rivera 7th, Brian McManus 6th, Niall Murray 5th, and then Peter Dempsey in 4th. Josh Malin, Keith Dempsey and Oscar Mangan occupying your podium places for the moment. Niall, is the microphone on? Can you hear us?
I can indeed. Can you hear me? Is that coming through now? I'm not sure why not.
Okay, it seems that the technical issues aren't just mine. Hopefully we get Niall back at some point to carry on with the action anyway. Arturas Candelas, the man with the hand controls, we always love to mention it, always performs so well for a guy who doesn't use your conventional steering wheel and pedals. He is in 10th position going around. He has Joe Naughton in front of him, hoping to see if he can catch him. But a top 10 for Arturas is a good result nonetheless. Now let's not forget that battle for 15th place as well is very important, because it sets the pole sitter for the feature race, the longer feature race. This is how we work here in the IDMC. We have a heat race and followed by a feature, and 15 to 1 gets swapped, and then we have the rest of the runners. So if you're finishing 15th, you qualify pole. If you finish 16th, then you are completely out of things. I don't seem to be able to hear Niall, even though he's coming up on stream. I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. So Brian McManus here battling away with Fabrizio, but I'm just going to go back up front because Josh Malin is now right onto the back of Keith Dempsey. And as I say that, look at Oscar Mangan out front. He has just managed to open up that as we ride, just to see how much he's got back to Keith and the gap behind. So we can see he is the danger man. I've called him out, and once you give him clean air like that, Kevin, you just can't let a man with that much pace out in front.
Oh, you can't. And look, as we see, there's some guys overextending, over-rotating, and obviously Keith a little bit slow off the line, but these guys have a huge amount of laps turned. They always put in a huge amount of laps, which means the consistency, apologies, is always there for these guys. So it's very, very unlikely they'll make mistakes. As Fabrizio Rivera now is trying to hold off Rory O'Shea, and that's a little bit tasty. Sorry, it's actually Fabrizio Rivera and Brian McManus. My apologies. Brian making it as tidy and as narrow as he can for Fabrizio, and I think he might on to the position. He's run very wide there though, and there's not much traction on that Astro, which means Fabrizio should take the place. Brian was trying to squeeze him on the inside, but Fabrizio making a nice move, the Italian, up into 6th position. Brian running the Holden Commodore ZB V8. I can't see what Fabrizio is in, but looking forward to seeing the opening. Again, that corner all the time now, and I don't know, have the guys told you, have you heard in the driver's briefing about certain corners that have caused difficulties for these? Because it seems like that third corner here at the Red Bull Ring seems to be causing serious difficulties. That's a real lunge down the inside from Fabrizio Rivera. Just about makes it thick. I don't think his tyres will thank him for that one, but with just a lap left, doesn't really matter. Brian McManus into 7th, and a really interesting battle developing here now.
Absolutely, as we go back up to the front as you get the white flag lap, try and get that out, Kevin. But Oscar Mangan just really is showing the world of class he is. And this man is back with a vengeance as well. Keith Dempsey, as you said, a man of all types of controversy, either justified or unjustified last season. It doesn't really matter to that. Followed down by Josh Malin, Peter Dempsey, and look at this, Niall Murray in the background as well. And then we go back to Brian McManus, who's now been hunted down by Rory O'Shea. And as I said at the start of the race, any one of these drivers capable in the second half of this race of coming from the back and win, but they'll have to get through that top 15 first of all. As McManus takes that spot again, but is O'Shea going to get the cut back? This time Brian is neither through the corner, as he said, and just getting that power down, but nothing was called out on the last lap by the drivers in terms of tyre degradation or hitting any of these curves, Kevin, to answer your question, but they do seem to be struggling to get the power down, especially through this corner. As now Rowan takes a wider line, just tries to get that exit and run on Brian. I think he has.
I think he's gonna get that run. Will we see another lunge down the inside? We're seeing the cars really want to swap ends under braking going down the hill as well. Brian is forcing now Rory to the outside, which means nice clean move run there by both of them. Fairly good on the brakes, both of them. Rory tries to move around the outside, but he's Charles Leclerc did. He's ended up in the gravel. And he's done well to keep it from the car from swapping ends in the end, Rory O'Shea, but he has dropped back 5 tenths of a second.
Let's go back up to man up the front who's just running a race all of his own, Kevin. Oscar Mangan, what can we say about this? This is a statement for the first race in this summer series for the V8 Supercars.
Absolutely, what a statement, Oscar Mangan, as he comes to the line, and with a 2.5 second advantage, Oscar Mangan has taken the first of this evening's race, indeed the first race of the V8 Supercar Series with IDMC in association with Digital-Motorsport.com, and what a brilliant run it was from Oscar Mangan. Obviously quick off the line, and then had Keith for company quiet for a bit, had Josh Malin of course ahead of him as well, but managed to battle through and just consistent laps. Josh probably not quite having the pace that he wanted to hold on to that victory, but Oscar Mangan, as you say now, what a statement out to the rest of the drivers. And if you can start off on the right foot, that really, we see it so often, it sets you up for the rest of the championship, and it gives us a great idea as to the leading man. And a 2.5 second advantage is absolutely enormous in the context of what we normally see in these IDMC championships. So Oscar finishing first, Keith Dempsey second, Josh Malin third, Peter in fourth, then Niall Murray in fifth, Brian McManus holding off, Rory O'Shea laid on to finish in sixth, Rory O'Shea seventh, Jason Smith in eighth, Arteris Condelis in ninth. And going down the timing table then, Fabrizio Rivera finished 10th, Richard Lyons in 11th, that's just gone there, Richard Lyons in 11th, James Holman in 12th, Ronan Doherty in 13th, did well to get back there, Ronan, after a couple of mistakes, Nicky Meredith in 14th, and Wayne Douglas will be the man who will occupy the pole position for this feature race around the Red Bull Arena in the middle of Austria. Peter McCann in 16th, Raul Montero in 17th, Adam Dowling, Kevin Shine, Dave Collier in the top 20, Dennis Hanley Jr., Ben McLaughlin, Brendan Stone, Tony Stack, Keith Stewart, Joe Nocton, who was running in the top 10 before he had issues. We saw him come out of the pits there late on. Neil Ferrier obviously was involved in an incident earlier on with Ronan Doherty. Mark Burney, Aaron Dalton, Simon Wall, Robert Lacey, Robert Moore in 32nd, and Lacey in 31st. So that is the first race of what is shaping up to be a really intriguing series. Now, what can we take from that? Oscar Mangan extremely quick, but Keith Dempsey certainly not far off the mark.
That sounds perfect to me. So, I'm done playing. Let's drive.
Are you looking to get involved in sim racing or to upgrade your existing sim equipment? Digital-Motorsports.com are the world's leading one-stop sim racing shop. We stock everything from wheels, pedals, PCs, cockpits, right through to fully built custom turnkey sim solutions built to meet your specific requirements. We're official distributors for the best brands including SimLab, Fanatec, Thrustmaster, Cube Controls, Husingveld, SimiCube, SimTag, Next Level Racing, Grid Engineering and many more. We offer fast, reliable worldwide shipping via DHL, and we also run some of the most competitive online racing leagues in the world. Check out digitalmotorsports.com today.
So as always, I'm just being told here, thanks Lawrence, so you can't hear me at all. It's probably not the worst thing in the world. Big shout out to our sponsors always, ESC Groups, SimiCube, SimTag, and of course in association with Motorsport Ireland. As we go back now, as the drivers are just warming up, Kevin, so we'll go back to the drivers at the moment, but it's going to be one hell of a grid for the second race.
And this is where you make your bread. This is where you earn your keep in this series. Excuse me, with a bit of a mic creak. This is where you earn your keep. We saw last season how good those guys in the TCR cars up the front were able to carve their way from back to front and make it look almost, so simple, but it really isn't that easy. There's a huge amount of traffic to make your way through. You've really got to be patient. You've got to pick your moments, and you've got to be able to make right decisions, to make clever decisions, to box clever, to use draft when you can, to stay out of trouble when you need to. and there's a real art and a skill to it, which is why I love watching these feature races. I think they're just such a brilliant form of racing to see. You know, it's all well and good if you're a hot lapper and you can pole quickly and you're quick, but you know, there's so much more to racing than just the ability to run fast laps. It's about being able to manage your way through traffic. It's about being able to make good decisions and knowing when to attack and when to defend. And the great thing about the feature is that we get to see these guys exercise that as well. So it'll be really interesting to see Oscar Mangan starting from 15th position and see how he can move his way up the grid, because often we see Oscar in races, he's normally polling first and he's starting from lights to flag. So great to see Oscar now move his way through the field. Usually brings a few more incidents. Imagine if people are a bit loose on the exit and they spin, we could see some carnage, but that's all to come with a nice view down pit road here at the Red Bull Ring, which of course, as I say, is a real staple track in Europe. From one that we've barely seen up until recently, has become a real staple track for racing of all kinds right across the spectrum. And it seems to be a track, Niall, can I ask, I suppose, look, we'll talk a little bit about it now that we have a bit of time. The calendar goes as follows. We're in Red Bull Ring tonight, then next week, in the 4th of August, we're in Interlagos. Then we go to Canadian Motorsport Park, Phillip Island, Road America, which is an interesting decision. And then, of course, finishing with, the ubiquitous Mount Panorama. You couldn't have V8 Series without getting those guys going up and down the Phillip Park.
So as we look at that, it is the ultimate V8 season. As we look here, Wayne Douglas, and I was hoping it was going to be actually Peter McCann up there beside him, but I don't see Peter yet. So it's Nicky Meredith, which makes it even more intriguing up front. And then we have Ronan Doherty, James Holman, and we'll get down to that grid as we go live now to this race. And as always, I will leave that over to your capable hands yourself. But I am looking at this, and as I like to do at all times, I'm looking back down the grid here, and I can't actually call this one, so I'm not going to this time, Kevin, because I can't tell you who is going to be my pick of this group. But
well, your first predictions were pretty spot on.
I'm going with Nicky Meredith, right?
Nicky Meredith doing it from second position as we go lights out for this feature race. 15 laps ahead of us at the Red Bull Ring. Oscar Mangan taking the heat. Now, who will take the feature on the opening round? Wayne Douglas leads those cars into turn one, and Wayne, I know, will be sweating because if you're whether you're a pro-am guy or you're a pro guy or you're one of the up the top or up the back, leading a race, you always feel those jitters, particularly in iRacing, as we see a gaggle of cars firing their way down into this braking zone. It'll be interesting to see now who is best off the power, because it's the traction here and then the ability to get on the brakes down the hill is where we're seeing most passing. Wayne stays in first position. 4/10 behind him is Nicky Meredith, then another 4/10, 3/10, 3/10, 2/10, and so on as we go down the hill. There's a few making moves already. Looks a bit, a little bit untidy, but they all get down there eventually. There might have been a little bit of a tap on the back of Peter Dempsey there by Josh Malin. Peter running alongside Arturas Candelas, who we are featuring here at the moment. Back to the front, Wayne Douglas doing an excellent job of keeping all these cars behind him. Just keeping an eye on Oscar Mangan. He's moved up to 12th position already, and there's already a little bit of a split in the field there, with a 2-second advantage between Keith Dempsey and Peter McCann. Bit of flashing lights there, not sure if that's gamesmanship or if it was over a previous incident. Manel Murray now leading for Victor Rivera into the second to last corner. Very high speed, these ones, and if you get these wrong, your line is completely out for the next turn, which means your line is completely out going down the back straight. Now we see a move down the inside, and that's a big lunge there by, and he's after taking Peter Dempsey out, as is Josh Malin. I think, I don't want to speak ill of somebody, but I think it was Josh Malin who lost it down the inside, slapped into the side of Peter Dempsey, and certainly we will be hearing, I'm glad we're not listening to the iRacing in-game chat, because I imagine these guys will not be happy at all, and too rightly as well. That's Peter Dempsey's race ruined by what's a clumsy move by Josh Malin on the opening map.
Absolutely, and I'm sure the steer, I actually heard him in my ears here as we were saying that, are investigating that, but I was about to say, that was really one of the cleanest opening laps we've seen in terms of just nose to tail racing the whole way around. And if you haven't driven these cars, as I was saying, it is clearly impossible to race like that, so hats off to these guys. These are the best in the business at this, make no doubt about that, as we watch Wayne Douglas being hunted down by Nicky Meredith. But in the background here, Ronan Doherty way up through the group, so Ronan doing really well. But unfortunately, as we were saying, right back down, we've had a clutter of the big name drivers already suffered. But still continuing on as I look at it there. So back up front, Wayne Douglas, he's certainly holding his own at the moment, Kevin.
Wayne Douglas holding his own at the moment, and two drivers that avoided all that carnage with Josh Main and the Peter Dempsey are, of course, Keith Dempsey and Oscar Mangan, two of our early championship tips, given how they've done thus far. Wayne Douglas doing really, really well now. He's onto the third lap and he's holding us off. I thought that Nicky Meredith might have been able to make a move down the hill, because we saw a little bit of tyre smoke from Wayne Douglas's back right tyre. He's just logged the quickest lap thus far. That was just beaten by Richard Lyons with a 1:30.5. So if you're ever wondering how you compare to these guys, load up an AI race around the Red Bull Ring with a V8 Supercar and see if you can do a 1:35 in the opening couple of laps. That gives you a good idea as to where things are. His way now, Nicky's going to try and move down the outside. It's going to be difficult to hold off, and that might leave the door open now for Richard Lyons to make a move. Richard being almost bump drafted around the corner there by Ronan Doherty, who seems to be finding a lot more traction than he did in the heat race. I'm not sure if that's because the track is rubbered in or whether Ronan has just gotten a bit of a recalibrated the settings. Looks like Richard might try for a move down the inside of Nicky Meredith, who tries to dive on Wayne Douglas, and Nicky loses in contact between Richard and Nicky as well, and Richard now drops way down the order. I would like to see that one again. It looked like Richard we'll see as that lap one incident now. Cars 90 and 99, that's Peter Dempsey, of course, and Josh Main, and that could be big for the championship early doors. But it looked like from Richard Lyons' point of view, he was going to try and move on Nicky, and then he had to he had no choice other than to kind of move down the inside, because otherwise he would have just punted Nicky off into the corner. Not sure how they ended up making contact in the end, but I would like to go back and see that. I'm not sure was it a racing incident or is there fault to be given there, but I imagine, speaking of fault being given, Josh Malin could be on the naughty step from the stewards for that lap one incident. But as you see, Oscar Mangan now up into 7th place, and sometimes these places are gifted to you, and sometimes you got to work hard for them. And Oscar, with only 4 laps, or just over 4 laps on the timing sheet, into 7th place. He's doing really well and running very comfortably. He has Richard Lyons behind him. Richard, of course, who had an incident with Nicky Meredith heading into around this section, not this corner but the next corner. Speaking of Nick, big move down the inside by Niall Murray, and contact again, by Nicky.
Same corner again.
And again, you can't see the Nicky. I think Nicky is the innocent party in that one. That's the way. Just from first looking at it, a fairly wild lunge. I'm seeing a lot of lunges down the inside, and I suppose now that's the thing about these V8 Supercars. They're hard to control at the best of times. Never mind when you try and pull out under, with a reduced aero, and then trying to get on the brakes. They get very, very squally as you go 3 wide into this infield section, and I can just see death ahead of me. And this is where it comes. Nicky Meredith taking out Fabrizio Rivera, and 3 wide into that section. Very high aero, always very difficult to get the job done, and keeping it clean, Niall, isn't it?
Absolutely, you get these great camera shots. But another thing for anyone who's new to sim racing and is watching is the platform we're racing on is of course iRacing. But something you may not be aware of is all these drivers are racing currently at home using their own simulators. As Nicky goes well wide, and into the pits goes Richard Lyons. We run back up in front. But as I was going to say, all these drivers are currently sitting in their own houses, comfort of their own house, racing away, but it is all connected over the internet, and every so often you might see a car just blinking or disappearing, or indeed another phenomenon we see is where cars, they don't actually make contact, Kevin, but that does cause the car to lose control, and that is of course the curse of Netflix, which is just part of this sport.
The curse of Netflix.
It is getting better as we go. As we look back, Wayne Douglas now, is he going to make a dive of the inside? And hopefully we don't see any of this ghosting, as we call it, or the cars don't actually make contact, Kevin, but it can cause them to lose control and infuriates the drivers. And for us, as commentaries and impartial to the whole race, we hate to see it as well. But so far so good. It's been very clean racing as we run back up in front. Ronan Doherty now really pulling away from James Holman. And all the time we're looking back, Oscar Mangan and Niall Murray will start to work together to pull in onto the back of these two. But the longer race this time, and we've seen around lap 10, around lap 9 or 10, you were asking me about the tyres in the heat race. I wonder if that'll come into play this time around, Kevin.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Ronan was getting a little bit squirrely at the end of that race, having made quite a lot of ground. So it'll be interesting to see if his setup is for a quick start and then he has to manage the tyres over the course of the race. I think it was the curse of netcode is the word you're looking for, Niall, not the curse of Netflix. Although I do believe that is an altogether different curse in which people will not incessantly stop using your account despite the fact that you gave them your details about 6 months ago. But that's an altogether unrelated iRacing curse.
Bruce on the chat here is actually calling me out and saying it's not the curse of Netflix, it's just the curse of Niall Mara, as every time I mention Nicky Meredith, of course, what happens for Nicky Meredith on the stream? Someone's either into the back or the front of him, but you can blame me. So
But Nicky's still running fifth, so he's managed to keep it together, Nicky, in fairness to him, as Oscar Mangan now looks like he was going to try and move down the inside of Niall Murray. Another turn 3 motorsport man, as there looks like there's lap traffic getting out of the way of them, am I right in saying, or is that James Holman? No, it is James Holman, I think, actually. That's holding them up. I'm not entirely sure why he ended up over-rotating so much, as Oscar now is swarming all over the back of Niall Murray, and he's hoping that Niall will make a mistake. There it is, Niall making a slight mistake. Well, I don't even know if it was a mistake, but certainly James held up Niall slightly, which allowed Oscar in, but just not enough space for Oscar to get through. He has to bide his time. This is not really a great place, as we see a fantastic camera shot of that Holden Commodore in the rear view mirror of, or sorry, from the gearbox, should I say, of James Holman, who's running second at the moment. And this is really, we see the difference in pace now between the guys who are kind of finishing around the midfield pack and the guys who are up the front, and Oscar is absolutely flying away with this. You tip Nicky to win it. It's going to be a tough ask, 3 seconds, almost 6 seconds behind the leader, but certainly a great position for Nicky and Oscar as well. I think for this point I'm going to tip Oscar to win. It isn't a very controversial pick, I know, but I've got myself in enough trouble in the last season without causing more hassle, and I hope Josh Malin doesn't get angry at me for my comments earlier on. But Oscar now with a dive down the inside of James Holman, plenty of space given, however, and they're going to battle each other now back up the hill, heading into that heavy braking zone. Who's later on the brakes, and more importantly, who's better with the loud pedal, who can get the car off the line with at least amount of over rotation. I think James is just going to hold off and give that to Oscar. I think he just knows the pace isn't quite there compared to Oscar, who's just absolutely lightning quick. We've seen that in the heat, although Oscar did not get a great run out of that corner, so that means the battle continues on. And Ronan Doherty, you've just seen him passing off. He's not even in focus of this battle. He is running off into the distance, as I think Oscar's going to get that job done now. Probably a few corners later than he would have liked, but now Niall Murray in his sights. So the top three: Ronan Doherty, Niall Murray and Oscar Mangan. They have James Holman, Nicky Meredith, Jason Smith and Fabrizio Rivera, Joe Naughton, Wayne Douglas and Peter McCann running off your top 10. And disappointing, as we see Dennis Hanley Jr. getting involved with Josh Malin again, but it is a disappointing one for Wayne. I suppose he was leading with 4 laps into the race and probably felt he could have had a very much higher position. He's dropped back down to 9th. He must have had an issue that we missed on commentary. It is difficult to keep up with everything, but with just about over half the laps gone now, Ronan Doherty in quite a commanding position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just hearing from the stewards here in my other headset that they're actually complimenting how clean this race has been. So I'll probably, as Bruce was saying, put the blame on me for that one as well. But it has been an incredibly tight race, considering, as we keep saying, just how difficult these cars are to race. As I say that Fabrizio Rivera comes by without a bonnet, but Ronan Doherty up in front, just showing how important it is to get these cars out into clean air, out of the draft, because all of that does play a part in these simulators as well, especially at this level with iRacing. So the wash in the front of the car, everything you would have in a real life race is there. So you can just see the difference it makes to him in terms of just the control, how much confidence he has gone into that, while everyone else behind, as I say that, Niall Murray is absolutely tearing up the inside. But Niall Murray's car looks like something out of Mad Max at the moment, as he's gone around the whole side of Red Bull Holden taken away, and all the time in the background Oscar Mangan reeling him in, Kevin. So we're in for one hell of a top 3 battle as we come down to the second half of this race, lap 8.
Absolutely, and having known what you know in the heat race, Niall will be anxiously looking at his mirrors, and just look at that gap tick down now, between 5 and 4 seconds, and this interval sheet rather helpfully letting us know where the closest battles are by colour coding it. But Oscar, 4/10 of a second now, 5/10 of a second, as we see a huge battle, a huge train of cars going all the way from Nicky Meredith in 5th all the way down to Wayne Douglas, and that's contact, and that is most certainly the kibosh put on Nicky Meredith. Meredith, Jason Smith running into the side of Nicky. I feel so sorry for Nicky Meredith. He's run a really good race. He's just been the innocent victim in a number of incidents. He's gone into pit lane. Will he come back out? We're not sure. But he is a fighter, Nicky Meredith, in fairness to him. But again, just Josh Malin now running without a rear wing, so it'll be interesting to see how that affects his car.
Or bonnet, or front splitter, or anything. So, like, these cars can't take a pounding. But what do we have to do for Nicky Meredith? But now look back at this. So this is your leader, Ronan Doherty. Now look at the background. Here's Niall Murray. Watch how Oscar Mangan is not going to really attack Niall too much, because he knows Niall has the pace to close onto the back of Ronan Doherty. And in the background, James Holman, an absolute ambassador for endurance racing and for just managing his times, managing his tyres. And he's sitting back there, and I know exactly what James Holman is thinking. I'll let these two guys battle it out. And there is a handy second place for me. And all time in the background, look at this. Joe Naughton, new to the season, rally man, and he's just shown his pace in the simulator as well. Wayne Douglas behind, and there is Peter McCann now chasing them behind the VRA teams. Look at this. Peter, Adam, Josh, and then we have Keith Stewart tying at that group. So really great racing, and in fairness, we'll go back up to Niall Murray now as he's being hunted down. I'll let you talk us through this. Over to you, Kevin.
Yeah, this will all be about who has the inside line. Oscar tries to move down the inside, but as you say, Niall, he's patient enough. He knows that gap is coming down. Whether it's coming down quick enough to try and get this feature race win is another question entirely, but Oscar just hanging in the background of Niall Murray, letting him do the driving. I was going to say, Niall, that Josh Maynard's car resembles your Fiesta that you were going to run a few weeks ago. Oscar trying to move down the inside, but elect not to go for it. I think he's hoping to get the run. But fair play to you for getting it to the line in the end that weekend. And look, there's still plenty of racing as well, of course, in Mondello. If you're like watching the virtual stuff, then get yourself down and watch the real stuff as well. They're just as competitive. I would have to say on the virtual side, the talent is so strong in these races. But if you want to see the real thing, I think they're starting to leave spectators finally back into Mondello, so do keep an eye on Mondello Park online for that. You can Google Mondello Park for that one. But we keep an eye on this battle here. Joe Naughton, as you say, a new guy in the series.
And look at that, just matte black car, nothing on it, but he's one to watch. And funny enough, I know for a fact that Joe is very heavily involved in redline racing and with Max Verstappen, so he'll know all the strategies and all the things to be doing in the right place at the right time. And already he's shown his pace with top six. Not easy to do in IDMC. I was about to say ICCR there. Let's go back to Niall Murray here and Oscar Mangan. And just as we're talking about ICCR, don't forget Digital-Motorsports are the title sponsors of that. And very evident when I was out racing 2 weekends ago there, Kevin, or when we got the Fiesta out and the MX-5, it was very evident and very nice to see. A lot of our drivers here that are racing with us were really putting in performances in the real world as well. So it goes to show, racing here in the virtual world, it does pay off in the real world. There's a lot of people in the background just saying, here we Stephen get it, Wayne Douglas, and this is a great battle. Let's stick with this for a while. Over to you, Kevin.
A really nice battle, and then just as you were speaking there, Niall, Oscar Mangan making the move on Niall Murray, finally into second position and now hunting down Ronan Doherty. Been a nice group there. Joe Naughton, James Holman and Wayne Douglas involved in that one, coming down the hill there. Joe is relatively in control of the situation. I think his rally pedigree certainly makes driving these loose cars at the back a little bit easier, probably a little bit easier, a little bit more used to kind of controlling oversteer and making the most of your exit on a slippy surface. But Wayne Douglas following in close behind. We have just over 4 laps left for these guys, around about 4 laps left for Ronan Doherty, our leader, who is 3.2 seconds ahead as it stands. But watch that gap tick away slowly but surely as we cross the line for the 12th time, and Oscar is just hunting him down. cue the Jaws music, because Oscar in the next couple of laps will be pretty close to Ronan Doherty, and then it'll be interesting to see how Ronan Doherty can keep his cool and keep his composure, particularly on the exit. But a brilliant drive from Ronan. I mean, we've been talking about the battles going on, but what a brilliant drive we saw. He struggled an awful lot with traction, particularly on the exit of this corner, particularly. Hopefully I don't put the kibosh on him. No, nice and smooth. A little bit of correction there in the Ford Mustang, but gets through the corner cleanly enough. I think that sausage curb on the outside is causing all kinds of problems for these cars, as Joe has been overtaken by nice little battle between Joe and Wayne Douglas. Wayne now down into 7th, and I think Wayne trying to move down the outside. That's a pity. Wayne, now he's managed to hold it enough. He does have a bit of a gap behind him. Adam Dowling now 6 seconds behind, so he should hold on to that position, but disappointing. Wayne, it looked like he tried to move down the inside of Joe Naughton because he was ahead of him, and Fabrizio Rivera seems to have... Oh no, he's back in. Okay, that was just a little bit of an internet issue. That was the curse of the Netflix there for Fabrizio, but he's managed to get out of it.
We'll have to start charging Netflix sponsorship at this stage. But look at this, right? Half a lap in, half a second down. Oscar Mangan on an absolute charge. But as I say that, Roland's already shown his experience. He's just made his way through these back markers, and this is going to be critical because this is a more technical part of the track we're coming into now. Although it's down into the start-finish straight, very much he has to get into that slipstream, get past him, or else he's in a spot of bother for the next 2 corners. And as I say that, this is exactly what I was talking about with these cars, where they disappear and reconnect. Now what's happening there is the internet connection of that driver just dropped for a second, and that's why you see them disappear like that, Kevin, and come back onto the track. Really frustrating for the drivers, but it is what it is.
Blinking is what it's called in iRacing terminology, and it is quite difficult, particularly when you're running in close contact. It can cause a few heart attacks. If you do want to see the effects of blinking, then there's a few YouTube channels that do the compilation videos, and guys are blinking in NASCAR races, and it's always carnage. But Oscar, you can't really assign any blame there. You can't help if a car breaks a little bit earlier than you expect, and then he just disappears. Then what are you expecting to do when he reappears?
Incident, just sorry for cutting across you there, Ken, but that little incident actually cost Oscar Mangan nearly 0.3 tenths of a second. So you can see how close these are racing now. He has got him within just 2 seconds and 2 laps to go. I'm wondering, is Ronan Doherty at this stage just backing off a little bit, just managing those tyres, letting them cool down? He seems to be running very much flat out from what I can see. But you don't want to be giving Oscar Mangan, as I say that, he's down to 1.6. Look at this, so it is on 1.5. So I'm just wondering, is Oscar just trying to manage those tyres for the last sprint and the last 2 laps, Kevin?
I don't think Ronan's in a position to really manage. There's still 2 laps left now and 1.5 seconds. That's gone down, even despite the difficulty that Oscar had on the opening corner, or on the second corner, should I say. Now we're on board with Oscar Mangan. These are great shots inside the Ford Mustang. V8, that's a mistake from Ronan Doherty. He's off the throttle, and Oscar sails past him down the back straight. I'm not sure what happened there to Ronan Doherty. Did he lose concentration and dip a tyre in the grass? I was too busy kind of looking at the dash and how nicely it was modelled. I wasn't looking at
squirming around. So I think I was right in what I was saying. He was struggling with those tyres. He had to back off, I think, just to let them cool down. And all that time, he was trying to find that fine line between just having the right amount of balance between the tyres and pace, and it just caught him out. That's what it looked like to me. Now we go back, look at this. James Holman, as I said, the master of endurance racing, he's sitting there thinking, I'll let all these guys burn away the rubber, and now with 1 lap to go, he's decided, I'm back in it, so it's game on.
100%, and I'm wondering, is Steadfast a sponsor on the windscreen, or is it his nickname? Because as you say, James is so good at keeping those tyres, at running. It's such a like, as you say, endurance specialist, and that really comes in handy. You think of these as sprint races, but with these V8 supercars, you're just so easy to light up the tyres, and it is so difficult. I mean, it is incredible that cars that are so susceptible to tyre temperatures are running in probably one of the hottest countries in the world. It is some sort of sick, cruel joke, you'd imagine. But the pros get it done, and these guys are getting it done as well around the Red Bull Ring as we get the white flag now, and Oscar Mangan is on course for starting the season with a double win. It took us a while to get a double winner in the TCR Championship, but Oscar Mangan now with a 1.8 second advantage over Ronan Doherty after that mistake that Ronan Doherty made. Now Ronan will be very happy with the second place if he can keep this going, but this could tick down. 1.8 seconds was the gap there recently between himself and Niall Murray, but that's gone up again. Now James Holman all over the back of Niall Murray. Niall's made a mistake. James going to try and cut across him there. That means he has the outside line heading down the hill. Now we can see it can be done, but I have to be very, very, very good on the brakes as James tries to get on the brakes. He's not going to hold that off. He's off the corner there, not quite a car's length. It's very reminiscent of Hamilton against Albon last year, but James holds it around the outside. Now he's the inside heading into this infield section, and I think he's going to get the job done here. James is. He cuts a little bit of grass on the inside and just eases Niall Murray to the outside, but Niall has to run nonetheless heading into this high aero corner. Now Niall swaps and has the inside line. He takes back the position as we head to the final two corners. Brilliant. These guys are side by side for a half a lap in these cars. I cannot stress to you how difficult it is in these V8 Supercars to try and hold your line. Never mind to say race side by side so with somebody in the Red Bull ring. It looks like Niall's got the head start, but Oscar, a little bit of showboating there from Oscar as he crosses the line. It looks like Niall Murray's going to hold on to that third position as he crosses the line. Yes, he does. Niall Murray finishing in third. What a brilliant battle at the end. Great respectful battle from these two. But Oscar Mangan takes the double here at the Red Bull ring as we see Peter McCann finishing ahead of Wayne Douglas. And then we have the Fiesta behind Josh Malin crossing the line in ninth position without a wing, without a bonnet. And he's lucky that he has a pair of tyres left in that thing. But he manages to cross the line for a top 10 position, although we will wait for the stewards' call on that early incident with with Peter Dempsey and poor old Nicky Meredith. Spare a thought for him as well. You put the kibosh on him now from the start, but
I'm going to start calling him out actually. You know, at this stage I think I should call around to his house and just, you know, give him a bottle of wine or something and say sorry. It's kind of every race. But what can we say about that? Like, that is, for me, one of the best double victories I've seen from this man, Oscar Mangan. Because, like, he went away from IDMC, he's come back, and he's really shown what the quality he has. And we keep saying it week in, week out, Kevin, like, these are the best of the best. I challenge anyone to come along and come in here and try and do that. Take a back-to-back victory in IDMC.
And look, Oscar is a very, very quick boy. The stats say the same thing. The 22-year-old, but a very, very quick lad is Oscar, and a guy who can transition easily between cars. So I'm not surprised to see him running up the front, but a double victory is an outstanding achievement, even though I would have liked to have seen, it would have been great to have seen Ronan hold him off a little bit more towards the end there, but a really nice battle between James Holman and Niall Murray. So here is your final provisional standings. We're waiting for the stewards to come back to us, but Oscar Mangan wrapping up the double with a win by 1.7 seconds. He has 100 points now heading into the next round at Interlagos. Second is Ronan Doherty, a great drive from him. Ronan, who finished down the standings, but certainly made the most of those swap positions in the feature race to come through to take second place. Niall Murray in third, James Holman in fourth, losing out there. Now really doing really well to hold off James heading over the line. Fabrizio Rivera in a good fifth position. He's always up and around there, while Joel Naughton is in sixth. A good battle there was developing, and Joe really strong drive for a guy who's in his debut race. Peter McCann, Wayne Douglas, Josh Malin with half a car, and Adam Dowling round off the top 10. Then we have Dennis Hanley Jr., Rory O'Shea, Neil Ferrier, Keith Stewart and Hal Montero for the top 15. Richard Lyons, Lacey, but I think that's Keith Lacey, is it? And Tony Stack, Mark Burney, Kevin Shine for the top 20, and then at the bottom of your grid, with still picking up points which can become useful over the course of the season. Ben McClockery, Dave Collier and Brian McManus round out. No, they don't round out. Brendan Stone, Simon Waltz, Jason Smith, Nicky Meredith, as we say. I can't believe I forgot about Nicky. We were talking about him the whole race. Peter and Keith Dempsey, and Arturos Condelis, Aaron Dalton, Rob Moore then round off the 32. And interesting to see turn three motorsport guys down the bottom, and just so disappointing for particularly Nicky and Peter to have been caught up in those shenanigans. I have the man with me, Josh Malin. It's so unusual, Josh, for us to be talking about you involved in incidents. I suppose, can you talk us through particularly that incident early on with Peter Dempsey, that opening lap last corner incident?
Well, I mean, first off, I'll hold my hands up and say it was my fault. I hit the brakes and locked the rears, and while changing down the gearbox, I locked them even more. And I had just a huge slide, and I hit Peter's rear right hand side, and sort of that was that. And yeah, no, it's my fault. Really, really sorry. I'm very sort of frustrated at myself because that screwed my own race too. So yeah, not the happiest bunny in the world.
Oh, but look, it just goes to show you, like, we were racing TCR cars, and they're so different to the V8s. The TCRs are relatively forgiving in the fact that if you start losing the back end, you can kind of, you know, as I say, step on the loud pedal and the car will right itself. Whereas these V8 supercars, extremely squally, not just under braking, but also on corner exit. Are they the most difficult car? One of the most difficult cars in the service to drive? Would you say?
I'd say so, on par with the Porsche Cup car. They've both got no ABS, both got no traction control. So yeah, they're probably some of the hardest cars to drive on iRacing. So I knew I wasn't going to be sort of mistake free, and that showed in the first race as well. Sort of quite annoyed at myself throwing away a win like that. But hey, it is what it is, and you just got to sort of take the points that you've got from it. But considering I was at one point, I think I was P28 after the incident with Peter. P9 I'm sort of quite sort of thankful for, because it's some points, and I had an absolutely ruined car in the process, which wasn't nice to drive at all.
Yeah, I was kind of taking the mickey out of Niall because I was saying it resembled the Ford Fiesta they ran 2 weeks ago at the ICC. But look, it
might as well have been.
But no, still, I mean, finishing top 10 in the circumstances, and you know, you're around these series long enough to know that every point's picked up are precious, particularly when, you know, there isn't a drop week in the final week and you don't have the opportunity to throw away all your races or your poor races. You always inevitably do have one or two bad ones, and it's about damage limitation. So I suppose all in all, I look, a disappointing evening, even though I suppose a learning experience nonetheless. So what do you take away from this evening at the Red Bull Ring, heading now into next week into Interlagos, which is a very different track to the Red Bull Ring?
One thing to note is tyre wear, especially over those last few laps in the feature race. It was horrible. Constant, like, sort of locking the front left, front right, or even locking the rears again, going in like sort of a corner entry. So it's not the nicest experience. You've really got to baby the tyres, but that in itself is a big job. When you've got cars bearing down behind you in your mirrors, it's like, yeah, you just sort of got quite a lot on your plate. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Interlagos. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make round 3 because I'll be racing up at Knock Hill in real life. So unfortunately, that will have to be my drop round. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season.
A poor excuse, Josh. No, excuse. No, I'm only joking. Look, we'll hopefully we'll be talking to you next week, and we'll be able to wish you the very best of luck in Knock Hill. But look, fair play to you for holding your hands up, and as you say, a disappointing evening in some ways, but in other ways, a damage limitation and a good 9th finish in the feature, and a good strong finish in the heat nonetheless. So, Josh, thanks a million for joining us, and look, we'll be speaking to you next week.
No worries, Kevin. Cheers, guys.
Now we've got Oscar Mangan in next. Oscar, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good to see you back. We're great. Thank you for coming back and joining us here at IDMC, and an impressive return, not to say the least. So, how did you find that race? Talk us through it.
Yeah, I guess just decided kind of the reverse grid. I'll just take it handy here. It's kind of a new car, and it's not easy to drive. So I just said I'd let's just let lap 1 unfold, and it kind of bit of a melee in front of me and stuff like that. So I managed to scrape by, and then just from there, sort of just chipping away. Not doing anything silly, no big sends or anything like that. Just try and kind of pick them off one at a time. I did a couple of long runs in practice, so I was sort of used to minding the tires by that stage. So it was it went well at the end. I was gutted for Ronan because I think he got a slow down at the end there. And I was kind of hoping we did be able to have a fight even in the last corner or something like that. But
it looked like it was going to be that way, and we're not sure. I think either his tires just let go and he made a mistake, or he did get a slowdown, but. Of course, you've been racing hard in other leagues with core sim racing, and how does IDMC compare to some of the other leagues that you've been racing in at the moment?
Yeah, for it's tough. The racing's hard. the main championships I've been doing recently are mainly open wheels. So there's kind of no room for just kind of banging doors and stuff like that. But it's still really good to see, like, we're racing in championships where the grids are like just this close, but it's kind of international. So to see, like, just an Irish championship with, I know there's a few from abroad and stuff like that, but to see the grid so close,
yeah, and
Irish, it's great.
It is great to see you back. And of course, in the first race, you were kind of showing your pace, but in the second race, you had it all to do to come back through the grid and just talk us through that from the feature race point of view, because you did have to really just put your head down at certain times and just work your way up through the field.
Yeah, sort of, I would have the philosophy coming into this of, if there's someone kind of within 2-3 tenths of my pace, I'll let them, and someone in the head that's much slower, I'll just sit behind them and let them, or just work together and stuff like that. No, don't minimize side by side just to try and catch the field ahead. So that was kind of the main goal was that. So I think I was behind Niall there for about 5-6 laps, and we were catching James, and then the two of them kind of not took lumps out of each other, which sort of just had a bit of a scrap. So I just managed to squeak by the two of them then, and I was happy. So yeah, mainly I was kind of shocked that I was as high up as I was. I know there was a bit of a tussle there at the last corner of the first lap, but yeah, it's really fun, this car. Like, you can really jump on the brakes, and the completely closed diff at the back, it kind of skates around, and you can hear the diff really kind of shuddering, and it's really fun. It's sort of a bit like the TCR actually, dancing around the brakes, and it's very satisfying to go for an overtake in this.
Well, great stuff. Well, we look forward to seeing how the rest of your season goes here, of course. So we'll let you give a shout out to your team, and then we'll bring in Ronan Doherty. But thanks for joining us again, Oscar.
Cheers, guys.
Right, and Kevin, over to you. Ronan Doherty, heartbreak there at the end, but Kevin, do you want to take the interview?
Yeah, Ronan, look, thanks a million for coming in, and I suppose just to explain, we can only start in one place, and that's with the ending of that feature race. Explain to us a little bit what happened, because it totally caught us off guard. I was kind of admiring Oscar's dashboard as I was heading up the front straight, and then all of a sudden I see him whiz past you.
Yeah, the tyres were letting go there at the end, and I just had a little bit of a moment which sent me wide into the gravel, and it gave me a 1 second slowdown. And I was trying to think where would be the best place to serve the slowdown, but I just had to do it in the straight. And it wasn't even really a slowdown where I gained time. I lost half a second with going off track. But yeah, I've got it. But in fairness to Oscar, he managed the tyres really well, and he just showed his experience at the end of the race.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, that's the thing. It's that experience, as you say, in the tyre management. And is that something that you had anticipated coming into this evening in the V8s? Because it's something a number of the drivers have talking about. Or how about, even we saw you in the heat race, you were running really strongly at the start, and then just really struggling with traction on exit.
Yeah, that was the one corner, turn 3, I think it's called, struggling there with the traction, like you said, and I knew the tyres and the V8s weren't going to hold up really well towards the end of the 15-lap race, but it caught me off guard how quickly it set in from the tyres being okay to losing them a bit, and fair play to Oscar, because he had the intuition, to sort of go on those long runs and maybe see how the tyres are going to react.
It was a great result nonetheless. I mean, second place in the feature was a brilliant result, and it does set you up rather nicely heading into the rest of the championship. I suppose, what were your ambitions, what were your kind of feeling heading into this championship? Because it is difficult when we change cars so often and we have new drivers coming in, so it's always kind of tough to know where to rank yourself.
Yeah. I don't really worry too much about where I rank compared to everyone else. I'm just trying to, work on myself. I started there in the USFs at the start of the year. It was my first season in IDMC, and you look at these guys, like you look at Kelly and Josh Milne and stuff, the Dempseys, and you think, nah, I'll never get there. But I suppose at the tail end there, the TCR season, I started work on it a bit more and think, well, let's try and close the gap to those drivers at the top.
Look, it's proving to be that way, and I suppose, look, even though a disappointing aspects of disappointment, I suppose you can't really be disappointed in finishing second in a feature race. In fairness.
Well, I'm definitely disappointed.
But like, what lessons will you now take into Interlagos? I mean, look, obviously tire management is the main one, but what else can you kind of take into next week?
Well, at least I know half the pace to be up there, in and around the top 5 at least. And I know you mentioned it, but tire management is going to be a focus, and just not letting mistakes creep in. I feel like if I maybe didn't make that mistake, just understeering out wide a little bit, it could have came down to the last lap potentially.
Look, Ronan, look, obviously you're disappointed, but I hope that you wake up tomorrow morning feeling a little bit better about your second place, because it is a very strong finish nonetheless, and it does set you up nicely, because there was a lot of big names that didn't pick up any points in the feature. So thanks a million for joining us. Is there anybody you want to give a quick shout out to before we leave you go?
Yeah, just thanks to all you lads for putting it on and giving up your time to do the commentary and stuff like that. And I'm looking forward to the season.
Here, Ronan, thanks a million for joining us. Ronan Doherty, second place in the feature race, and a really good scrap that unfortunately we were slightly robbed of against Oscar, but we're looking forward to seeing you guys clash heads again, hopefully next week at Interlagos. Yeah, Niall, I suppose, look, have we anybody else to join us, or are we wrapping up this opening night of the IDMC V8 Supercar Championship?
The only person left to thank here is our sponsors, of course, Kevin, and for yourself. After losing that, sorry, for yourself for that wonderful job tonight. I know we had a couple of little small teething issues, but we got through it in the end, and I'm really looking forward to this season as we move on. So a big shout out to ESC, of course, SimiCube, SimTag, and of course we run all these in association with Motorsport Ireland. So join us next week as we head to our next round in the Summer IDMC Championship. And I guess all there is left to do is to let you wrap it up as you usually do, Kevin, and then we'll join you back in a week's time.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the track selection for the season. We never got around to the conversation. We'll hold it till next week. But yeah, so the same time, same bat channel, same bat place next week. 4th of August, 8:30. What else would you be doing on a Wednesday evening in the summer other than cracking open a beverage of your choice and sticking on the best quality iRacers across your screens in these extremely lively and extremely challenging V8 Supercars? It is watching the best of the best handle the toughest of the toughest. So as we say, next week after Oscar Mangan's double, we move on to Interlagos. All the way from Austria we go to Brazil. Hopefully it'll be slightly warmer there for the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace for the second round of the IDMC Summer Season V8 Championship. Do leave your comment of your driver in the day in the chat. Do give us some feedback if you like. Thankfully Josh Malin was able to give his direct feedback, so I'm off the hook. I should be, but until next week, Niall, thanks a million for joining us. Slán go fóill.